mute
and then
yourself.
only when we speak should we unmute.
It is
Okay,
live.
very
It is
good.
live. It is live. It is live. Okay now.
Good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Asian Literary Society's panel discussion on literature and Indian fiction. So we're going to have a warm discussion today on this lovely topic. For those of you who are new to ALS or the Asian Literary Society, let me just introduce you to ALS. Uh, it's a community of many people, of more than 12,000 people, and we promote Asian literature, art, and culture. This was founded in 2018 by Mr. Manoj Krishnan, and who's the author of the book Kanishka. There's an online journal called the Journal of Asian Arts, Culture and Literature, and I'm the associate editor for the same. So for today, we are going to be talking about literature and the Indian fiction. Fiction has changed a lot since the time Deen Mohammed wrote his travelogue, and we've gone through various Indians writing in English. And today we are at a place where Indians are firmly in place when they write in English. So to take this discussion forward, let me start introducing to you all the guests of honor and panelists who are here today. So our guest of honor today is Mr. Sohail Mathur, who's an author and also a literary agent. That's the link between the author and the publisher. He's written two very famous books, one which I've read personally, The Pair of Putras. It's been on the best-selling list of Amazon for 60 weeks, and when it had got released, and The Hunt for Rama's Bow, which is another very, very interesting book. I think part of a trilogy. I'm waiting for the rest. He's a man of many, many talents. He's been a cricket commentator for Star Sports, and at present he heads the new content development at Zee Entertainment's Big Magic. So welcome, Sohail.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to a highly invigorating session.
So let me just ask you before we go on. As a literary agent, you see so many books. I mean, you have to read a lot of books. How do you choose a book?
Okay, so there are two ways to choose a book. One is in your personal capacity, and the other is in your professional capacity. So when I say personal capacity, what I mean is that, since I have written fiction books myself, I'm always partial towards fiction in my personal space, because I always believe that, as an author, 50% is the story and the remaining 50% is writing that story. Whereas in a non-fiction, 50% of that job is already done in terms of the storyline. So you only have to write it because the story is already there. So in a personal capacity, that's something that I like. I like to read new unexplored genres, something in the science fiction space. Horror was something that wasn't too prevalent in the market a few years ago, but we've been at it, and thankfully we've made some inroads. In a professional capacity, what we do is that we look at a script based on how a publisher would assess it. So there are different publishers, and what happens is that those publishers may not necessarily mention what kind of books they're looking at in a public domain, because they have to be all encompassing in nature, when any submission is made to them. But it's very important that we know what they're looking at on the prevalent market. We look at a particular script, and we're rather honest with authors. We tell them what a market for a particular kind of book would be, because what happens is that, and I always tell everyone that all publishers are looking for the same things, right? So the parameters of judging a script always remain the same. So they want a good story, they want good writing, and they want a script that can sell well. So there are three things that are uniform. So if the parameters are uniform, then one particular book should either be accepted by all publishers or rejected by all publishers, because they're judging on the same criteria. But that never happens, because everyone's personal and individual tastes and preferences come into play. Also,
Yes,
what a particular publisher's business plan for that particular year is also needs to be known. So it might be that a particular publisher has brought out a lot of romantic fiction novels. So all the aspirants of romantic fiction would want to pitch to them. But it might be that because they have already saturated that market, they may be looking at mythological fiction. But
Okay.
to a common author or an aspiring author, that would not be known. But because we are in the field and we have an idea as to what they're looking for, we'd be in a better position to pitch it. So the idea is to get every book placed, because I genuinely believe that there is a market for any and every kind of book. There are readers of different tastes and who like different genres. So we should not be the ones who should decide what a particular person should read, right? The idea is to encourage authors, promote literature, bring out diversified genres, and bring it out and make the readers take the ultimate call whether it's worth their while or not.
Okay, thanks, Sohail. That's really wonderful to hear it from your side. So one of our panelists today is Ms. Meena Mishra, who is a poet, an author, an educator, and has turned to publishing. She's a founder and CEO of her own publishing house, the Impish Lass, which is interestingly named after the first book that she has published. So, Meena, if I can ask you, along the same lines, you have written books which are a little, like it talks about the boundaries that the society sets on you. So, how do you see fiction from your point of view as a publisher and as an author? Meena, could you hear me? We seem to have lost Meena there. Okay, I'll pass on this question to Beena. Our second.
Thank you very much, Swasti, for my welcome here. The warm welcome. Fiction is on. It's changed.
Meena, there seems to be a lag, so we just put you on mute. And yeah, so Beena, we have another panelist. Our second panelist for today is Beena Pillai. She is an author. She has written a poetry book called The Lyrical Rhythms of My Heart. She has written a fiction called Under the Mango Tree. And interestingly, she started writing at the age of 60. So that we know that age is no bar. Sohail, I think you are the one who has been her literary agent. So I would like to come back to this about the book also. Beena is also a fellow administrator, a fellow associate editor at the Journal Online, and she is the administrator of the ALS group. So Beena, I would like to ask you, I've been waiting to ask you this question, Beena. Your book, The Under the Mango Tree, talks about an extramarital affair. Now, how do you justify that? And as in, what was your thought process behind taking up this kind of a theme?
Okay, it's an interesting question. It was a marriage-only name. So Dia has tried her level best to make it work. So she did not feel any sense of guilt. And the phrase as extramarital affair, it has got sordid connotations. And but in this case, between Aditya and Dia, it was simple and pure love. And what is life if there's no love? And who's to say that love should be found only in marriage? So that's our explanation to this the question that you asked.
Okay. Suhail, I'll come back to you on Dia's love story before, but let me introduce Santani to everybody. Santani is also a fellow associate editor at the Journal of Online Literature. She is a person who writes about children's literature. She is widely published, award-winning. In 1996 and 98, there were 2 fellowships which were granted to her by the Ministry of HRD, Department of Culture. And she also used to write for Chanda Mama. I was really happy to hear that, because it was 2 years for Chanda Mama from 2011 to 2013. I think 2013 it went out of publication. I've grown up on Chanda Mama, so that was that's something. So Santani, why children's literature? And like when I was growing up, the only children's literature we had were Enid Blyton books. So how has it changed in the last so many years?
That's true.
So when I started writing, maybe 30 years ago, the only books that were published in India for children, they were moralistic books. You know, books with little proverbs like you should always be honest, or a stitch in time saves nine. Um, Publishers believe that every book for a child had to teach a lesson. There had to be a proverb or to teach something good. So there were very few, it was in the nascent stage, publishing for children. There were hardly any characters that were created by our local authors. This was about 30 years ago, but now the scene is very different, and we have a very vibrant children's literature scene in India, and we have all kinds of books, starting with the concept books for the very tiny children, teaching them things like alphabets and numbers. Then we have picture books, chapter books, we have young adult books, and many different genres like adventure and writing on the environment, and even subjects which were earlier taboo. Like one of my favorite Indian authors is Ranjit Lal, and he won the Crossword Book Award for Faces in the Water. And that was a story about female infanticide. So I remember I was with him at a conference, and I asked him, like, what made you write this book? And he told me, I have sisters, and I have a very close relationship with them. And I was just thinking, what if they didn't even get a chance to be born? That's what happens in female infanticide. You don't even give a person a chance to be born. So sometimes I grumble, at least we got a chance to live. So literature in India has really evolved. It is growing in every way. So it is a very different.
Thanks, Anthony. Yes. In fact, I said thank you, Anthony. We'll come back to this about literature. Meena is back with us. Yes. So, Meena, what I had asked you was about social boundaries and how do you, as an author or a publisher, look towards it? We can have your views.
As far as social boundaries are concerned, we should not bother about the social boundaries because we are the torch bearers. We have to show a path to the society. And if we only get ourselves constrained to these social boundaries, then how will the younger generation move forward? How will they come ahead? So we have to come out of all those things. Actually, as far as, Indian literature is concerned and fiction is concerned, there has been a drastic change in what it was many years ago and now what it is. Like, things are acceptable, people are sensible enough, they are sensitive towards others' problems and needs, and that is what has made a great difference to the entire literary world.
Suhail, I'll come back to you on this regarding, because Meena and you are both speaking from also the other side, you're authors as well as people who read other people's work a lot. As Meena said, there's been a lot of change in Indian fiction, maybe of Indians writing. So do you agree with her, and to what extent?
Yeah, I think this requires a slightly lengthy answer, but I'll try to keep it as short as I can. So the first part to it would be in terms of how Indians have evolved in the field of commercial fiction writing. And I think that is a change that has been brought about, and you can see that change by leaps and bounds. I think there are so many authors these days, and I think everyone who has a story wants to write. So I always say that why people like Mr. Chetan Bhagat or Mr. Amish Tripathi really got the adulation that they did was, apart from writing a book that was of course well received, they also had the first mover advantage. So I would say Mr. Chetan Bhagat was probably the first commercial fiction writer in India. I mean, as far as commercial writing in India went, the maximum you went prior to that was someone like a Ruskin Bond or a Shobha Day, right? But it wasn't something as commercial as we see in today's day and age. So he was the first one. His books were sold at a very reasonable price. As a result, a lot of people purchased it, that they felt that even if it was bad, how bad it would it be, right? Because they would still be getting some worth out of the book. And when they started reading it, they felt that the stories that he wrote resonated with them, because that was something that they had also encountered in their personal lives when they were in college. So the stories resonated, and that spawned an entire generation of writers inspired by Mr. Bhagat, who apparently are also doing well, like Durjoy and Ravinder and Sudeep and the likes. So that is as far as romance was concerned. With Mr. Tripathi also, there's always a thin line between having the first mover advantage, because it could either work in your favor or it could not. So when he wrote the book, mythological fiction as a genre wasn't established in India, so he had to self-publish the book, right? But when the book started doing well, publishers realized that this is a genre that we need to capitalize on, and then they signed him up, and rest is history. So I think, as Meena said, that we need to be the torch bearers, the flag bearers. We need to be more accommodating and accepting of scripts, of ideas, of concepts. That is, I think, a necessity.
So when you're talking about this, Suhail, I wanted to, in fact, ask you, when Beena was talking, what made you choose her book? I mean, a book like this, which is written as a a story of a young girl who grows up and then willingly goes into an extramarital affair. I keep poking her about that. What makes you choose a book?
Sure. So I think the beauty of the book is that you can't really put it in one concrete genre, so to say. I felt it had shades of literary fiction. I felt it had shades of commercial literature also, in terms of how it played out. And I also felt that and I still feel that it is a book that is destined to win a lot of literary awards. So I remember telling her that too. So I stand by that. So I think it had the perfect amalgamation of a lot of things in its favor. And also, what happens is that in the usual scheme of things, or usual parlance, we see a lot of romance books, as I mentioned, which are inspired by Mr. Bhagat's style of writing and setting, most importantly. And the other kind of books that you'd see, would really not play around with protagonists who are older than the usual lot. So here was a book that was doing that. It was a mature romance. It traversed an entire journey, and I think that was the beauty of the book that really set it apart. Sometimes you need to do books which not only resonate with you, but you also know that this book is a strong differentiator from any other in the market.
Definitely, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah, so, and I'm glad that our conviction was proved right, because not only were a lot of publishing houses interested in it, Beena was just last week mentioning that the book has performed amazingly well, and I think in such a short span of time, it's become a bestseller. So yes, very happy, and congratulations to Beena.
Okay, Santini, I'll come back to you on this, on this entire conversation that we are having about historical fiction and all. You are writing for children, and many of your books are based on history. Now, when I was growing up, believe me, I've learned my entire history through Amar Chitra Kathas. So I really don't think I learned as much from my CBSE books as I did from the Amar Chitra Kathas. So and children are very impressionable. So when you are writing a book like, let's say, the Marvelous Maratha, or any of those history-based books, how accurate are you towards history? Because children believe that.
That's a very good question, and a lot of the work goes into the research before actually writing. For example, I'll give you an example. In the series in which there is the magical Maratha, there was a book which I wrote on the Vijayanagara Empire. And in one of the scenes, it was a market scene, and I had to describe all the vegetables in the market. And aloo is one of the most common potato. So you think, and every region of India has got its own potato recipe. So we think that aloo belongs in India, but actually aloo came to India only with the Portuguese. And during the Vijayanagara Empire, there was no aloo. So you have to do research if I had written that the little boy had gone to the market and bought potatoes, the whole accuracy goes. So I had to do detail about everything, including the costume,
Yeah.
that was eaten, the coins, the currency, the kind of clothing, even the names. We researched the names, the kind of names that the people used to use during that era. So a lot of the interest in the book is because the facts are absolutely accurate. And the publisher always asked me for sources. Where did you get this information from?
No wonder you are an award-winning writer, Santini, and your books are doing so well. So, questions for Beena and Beena and Meena, both of you.
Yeah, it rhymes.
Both of you write, yeah, they rhyme. So both of you write both poetry and fiction. So you write. So how do you choose what speaks to you? Why poetry? Why fiction? And which is your favorite? I'll start with you, Beena. Okay, I'll start with you, Beena. B for Beena. Beena Pillai.
Actually, poetry is easy to write. Beena or Beena? Okay.
Beena.
Poetry is
Pillai.
easy to write, but only thing is sometimes you can hear me.
Yes, yes,
You can hear me.
yes.
Okay. Poetry, I find it quite easy to write compared to fiction. But the only thing is sometimes I feel that you get restricted in poetry where you can't express too many words to describe it. It has to be in 25 lines or 30 lines, or the people get bored to read that poetry. So that way, I think I always prefer fiction. But at the same time, to read, I like fiction more than poetry. So it's reading or writing you're asking. Is it about reading?
No, it's whatever.
Or you're right, or about writing?
So let me get to Meena Mishra. Meena Mishra, what is
Yeah,
your
writing, I think poetry.
Okay, Beena, just complete your sentence, then we'll go on to Meena.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So
writing, you would prefer what?
Also, there are other limitations in poetry. Yeah, writing, I prefer writing poetry because it's very easy to write. If you have a subject or a plot, you can easily write the 25 lines. It's, at least for me, poetry just flows from my heart, so I can write it easily. But see, fiction you read, yeah, you have to write many words and many pages, about 80,000 words. But definitely to write, I like fiction also because there is a plot to write. There's a strong plot. There are many characters, and in one story you can have many stories.
Okay, so let me come to Meena Mishra. Meena Mishra, how do you see
like
it? Poetry or fiction?
See, for me, like as a reader, okay, I love reading stories. Okay, because it has an everlasting impact on your mind. It is like watching a movie. Okay, it is like that. But then when it comes to writing, as Beena said, writing poetry is easier because you don't need a plot, you don't need to think of the characters, you don't need to think of a theme. It is like a natural flow of thoughts and words. Okay, so you are not like, worked up with the thing. You are not at all worried about what you are doing. But then as a publisher, when I plan out a storybook, okay, whenever I say we are going to do a collection of short stories, the writers are like, ma'am, can we write poems?
Yeah, because as a writer, you prefer that. So let me go to Suhail and Meena. Meena, just continue with my next question to you is that how do you balance between being an author and being a publisher? The same question will be for Suhail once you finish. How much are you influenced, or where do you draw your balance between being an author and being a publisher? And
see, I've got, for me, like as an author, I'm completely independent to do what I want to do. Okay, I can think the way I want to, I can write the way I want to. But then as a publisher, I do have a set of rules and regulations that I have set for my publishing house and for my writers, and even I abide by that. So that is the line drawn between, my role as an author and the publisher. As a publisher, you have to.
Could you
Sorry?
elaborate on that? Rules
Yeah.
such as?
Yes. For example, as a publisher, you have to be good to everyone. Okay? You have to be polite. You have to do the things that you want others to do. Say, for example, if I want the people to follow the word limit for a particular book that I am doing or an anthology that I'm doing, I can't cross the word limit. I can't say, look, simply because I'm a publisher, I'll just cross the word limit. Okay, so I have to set an example first. I have to abide by the rules. If I say don't post personal messages in this group, then I have to do that first. And you have the authors, those who have worked with me. You have Bina, she has been a regular author of mine. Santini knows me. You know, I never break rules.
Okay, that's, I mean, I think that speaks volumes about that. Suhail, what about the same question?
I agree.
How do you balance between being an author and being a
Sure.
literary agent?
So see, it's been a while since I did my last book. Although in fact, I was just talking to someone the other day, and the royalty report or the sales report of my last book, the Hunt for Rama's Bow, actually had come, and I was like, pleasantly surprised to see the number of copies that had sold. I mean, some of the recent best-selling authors also haven't got that. So I was just thankful, but I was just wondering. It's been so long. I wrote my book in 2017, as in it released.
Yeah.
It released in December 2016, so it's been a while. But the thing is that, and again, a very funny thing. So somebody was telling me that you've become like Farhan Akhtar. So Farhan Akhtar started off as a director, but now he's known as an actor. So thankfully they didn't say singer, but nonetheless, so he started off as a director, but he's known as an actor. And similarly, you started off as an author, but you're known as a literary agent. But I think that's a conscious decision. To be really honest, it's not that I cannot write. It's ideas come in my mind on a daily basis, and I know that I can do a fairly good job of.
Oh yes, a very good job. Bhairav Putra
whenever-
was amazing.
Thanks. In fact, whenever I do write, something, it's very well appreciated. But I'll tell you, Swasti, what happens is that when you are working for somebody, it's necessary and imperative that you give their interests priority and predominance. Because what happens is that the beauty of writing is such that you can do it at any point of time. I mean, that's the beauty of creativity. There's no sword hanging on your head that you have to do it at that point of time itself. If an idea strikes you much later, you can start off at that point of time. Or if an idea strikes you now, you could start writing it later because the story's in your head. But if you have a contract with a certain person, you have to give them preference, as I mentioned. So in my case, it's more about a conscious decision and moving towards a certain way, because somebody asked me at a literary festival that what gives you more happiness, when your own book does well, or when an author's book of yours, an author of yours books do well. And I always tell them that, look, when I'm doing my book, that is just my book. But when an author of mine, their book does well, who told you that it is not my book? That is also my book. Because if I don't feel that it is my book, I will not represent it with the same fervent, interest that I do. So you have to believe in the concept that you are. And, when one person's book does well, I become happy. When an author's book does well, the author and I become happy. So you're doubling the happiness. So let's increase and multiply the happiness. And, that's the whole idea of spreading positivity and ushering in a whole new era of new generation of writers, so that the future of Indian literature is in safe hands.
Yeah. So coming back to Suhail, I'll come to you, Santini. But Suhail, I just wanted to ask you, when I started reading the Hunt for Rama's Bow, when I wanted to read that, I had heard that it would be a trilogy, and that was a book one. So as a reader, I would urge you to complete the trilogy, please. Okay. Santini,
actually, the thing, Swasti, is that the stories for all three books are written. Like the plots for all three are written. It's just that I haven't sat down, to write the other two, because story is complete from A to Z.
Amongst all of us, I'm the only reader. So I
Which is
am
the most
totally on the
important
other
thing.
side.
Where would authors be if there were no readers like yourself? So I think huge congratulations for you. Deserve an applause. I think.
Thank you. Santini, coming to you. You have written for children. Do you ever feel like writing for others, like other genres? Do you want to write about adults or romances or thrillers or even, or is it
Not
a
really,
conscious
no.
choice?
I'm happy doing children's literature. I think I enjoy that best. So I do a lot of I do write poetry, but it's all poetry for children. Um, Indian publishers are not too happy with poetry collections for children. But luckily for me, a lot of my poems have been taken by academic publishers and they are widely used across
Yeah.
schools in India. And so that way, my poems also are well known among children. I am not really, no, not, I don't really have time now to do anything else. So there isn't a story in my head that is bubbling to come out, only children's story. So I think, yes, I'm going to stick with this.
Okay, so the children are blessed. Now, both Meena and Santini are also into
Can I
the.
just add one thing? Can I just add
Yeah,
one
sure,
thing?
sure. Go ahead.
I think ma'am will, understand this. I was again at a literary festival, and we were discussing what is the difference between, a children's book and an adult's book, so to say.
Okay.
Uh, just because the protagonist is of a certain age, does that make it a kid's book? Whereas the theme in that book, as ma'am had mentioned in her earlier example, could be something that resonates more with adults. So I think the whole demarcation, of kids' books and adults' books is not something that's correct, because while you should have genres, I feel kids and YA is a genre that is much more prevalent, because just by mentioning that, okay, if it's a teenager, the book is YA in nature, but if they're solving a crime, which an adult would, the plot remains the same. And a few years ago, the Jungle Book had released in the theaters, and
Yes,
the,
yes.
and the movie was a huge success, not because the children of today's day and age wanted to see it, but
I
because
think the
their
children of
parents who had
yesteryears
seen
wanted to
it,
see it.
yes, the parents who had seen it when they were kids wanted to see it and show it to their children. So who was seeing it? Adults were seeing it primarily along with their kids. So would you say that the sales was coming from children? No, it was coming from adults. So I think we need to broaden our horizons and judge a story and not the characters per se.
Okay, so since we are coming almost to the end of the show, I'll take one of the things. I'm very happy, Suhail, you brought that up, because when I was growing up, a children's book was separate, adults' book was separate. Adults' book were about subjects which were taboo, like sex or erotica and stuff like that. So, in fact, I wanted to ask you and also ask Meena about the same thing, Meena Mishra, that is, that will we ever see a 50 Shades of Grey? I mean, it's not a good book. I don't think 50 Shades of Grey is a great book to compare. But is that genre there in India, and how does it? How do you see the future? What's the future like?
Swasti, as far as India is concerned, it had already opened the doors of erotica for the whole world. Okay, there have been works already published. The taboo.
I think we've lost Meena. Suhail, can you take over? Can you just let us know about your ideas about erotica and that genre? Do you come across it? I'm sure you read so much.
See, what happens is that people per se do not want to write erotica. In my experience, what happens is that they very seamlessly infuse erotic scenes in their novels, so that the genre
Yeah.
remains commercial. But what they want to say, or they want to bring in a commercial angle, or to appeal to those kind of readers, they do have such kind of scenes. That's there. In terms of erotic writing, I think there are authors, but those kind of books generally do much better as ebooks, because as the case is, probably everyone wants to read it, but nobody wants to acknowledge that they read it. So they'd rather limit it to their phones.
No, I'm not
And
talking about the taboo book. I'm talking, say, when I was growing up, at a certain age, we went into Mills and Boons. There was a entire 5-6 years which we went into Mills
correct,
and
but
Boons.
Mills and Boons largely comes in the category of rom-com or chick lit, which is a very, very prevalent genre in the
Exactly.
market. I think there are several authors we ourselves represent, like Sujata Parashar or Kiran Mandral or Shuchi Singh Kalra, Vani Kaushal, and many others. Swati Sharma. So all these people write chick lit, which is young, frothy romance. Romance stories which appeal to people. Niharika Jindal is another one. So these kind of books have takers. These kind of books have takers in the major publishing market as well, and sometimes they are also acquired for film adaptations too. So I think those are frothy romances because the plot in itself is not driven by sexuality as such. It's driven more by the adventures or the misadventures of a particular character, and then how a particular character falls in romance with someone. So it's more
More of a
romance driven than
tall,
sexually
dark,
driven.
handsome guy who will come and take us
Exactly.
there. Okay.
Exactly.
So you mentioned one more thing which I would like all three of you to talk about, starting with you, Beena. So there's a lot of scope for self-publishing today. Kindle, Amazon, you can publish yourself. So how does that affect, the challenges and the good points about being able to self-publish? If you could all just talk about it. I'll start with you, Beena, if you can start, and then Santini and Beena and Sohail. Beena Pillai.
You want to know what self-publishing versus traditional publishing? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that is one option. But as from an author's point
Swasti,
of view, how does it?
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Beena. So, yes, if you could just talk about self-publishing and how it has changed. So we'll take this as the last question because we.
I think about self-publishing. Self-publishing, Meena can answer, isn't it? Because she, I
want everybody.
Self-publishing.
Okay, I'll pass it on to Meena. Meena, what about self-publishing?
Swasti, I'm very sorry due to the
when a publisher feels. I'll just answer this. Swasti, let me just say this one sentence. Only when a publisher feels that a story will sell, he will offer you traditional. Otherwise, you'll have to go for self-publishing where you can pay and publish anything that you want. But you're paying there. That's the difference.
No, I'm talking more about the e-publishing. I don't think that is very expensive. Santini, can we have you because you have self-published?
Oh, you're talking about Kindle publishing?
All types of Kindle.
Kindle publishing is different.
Okay. Kindle is free, Swasti. Nobody has to pay for that.
Exactly. So how does that help you?
It does help.
Publishing.
Self-publishing is okay. I'll just tell you. Shall I?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So earlier when I entered into this field of publishing, it was all about the writers have to pay a particular amount to get published, and they would hardly get say 5 authors copy, and the publisher is done with it. So that is how I had entered into it, and that is what I had seen around. Okay, but then once I realized that this is a pain for the writers, they are putting in so much of effort, they are paying so much, and then a publisher is charging a bomb and then giving just 5 copies to a writer. What is this happening? Okay, so recently I have turned into traditional publishing now. So it doesn't matter whether your story sells or not. If you have put in your hard work honestly to a theme that is very close to your heart, you deserve to be published as an author. Okay, and that is what our tagline is. Each soul that writes has the right to get published. So we have lots of free publishing projects for the schools also, for the educators, for the students. And now we have come up with this, wherein a writer just has to pay rupees 5,000 as a processing fee and you will get published.
Okay. So I think I must have framed the question a little wrong. I was, I guess, talking about Kindle publishing, where people can.
Kindle is completely different. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, but you don't even have to go through a publisher and the entire route for that. So does that help you as an author, or do you think that's a bad thing altogether? Shantini, can we have your views on this?
That's about Kindle.
So I've never had to self-publish. I must be very truthful. When I started out writing, there was no self-publishing, and it was called vanity publishing. So there was no self-publishing. So I went through the usual routine of 100 rejections before you found the right publisher. So that's the model that I have stuck to. Lots of rejections, then reworking the book, looking for another publisher. So I haven't really thought about, never had to self-publish. Although I must tell you, I have heard a lot of great success stories of people who have self-published simply because they didn't find the right publisher and they knew that the work was outstanding, and then they published it themselves and it went on to become very successful. So I think that it depends what works for you. You have to get, as Suhail said, a publisher who believes in you, and you have to believe in your own book. And then I think you're probably on a winning combination. I haven't done it, but I honestly think that this is something that can work if you have the right publisher and the right formula.
Okay, so Suhail, I'd like to end with you giving the final word. So I think what I was talking about was Kindle publishing, but by self-publishing, you mean that author himself pays or herself pays and gets herself or the book published, which doesn't seem like a very bad idea to me. So how do you as a literary agent look at it? And we'll be having you as a final speaker.
Sure. So stemming from what ma'am said, I think she mentioned that some of these people published it on their own, on Amazon or as a Kindle because they believed that the book would be a huge success. But what I'll tell you is that, that is true for all authors. We all write books that we believe are going to be successful, right? Otherwise, why will we write it? Or at least a majority of people do think that their book will sell. So that's why everyone does it. These are probably little easier ways of, putting things out when things don't work out in your favor. Then you can always say that, we believe. Also, the other thing is that what is the yardstick of a book doing well in that format? The yardstick is different because as Meena had mentioned, since you don't have to put in any money, right? Even if you sell 10 copies, those 10 copies that sell, bring you profit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're just 10 copies that have been sold. In comparison to say where, traditional publisher would bring it out, where the print run in itself would at least be of, 1100 copies, if not more. So we're looking at the difference of scale, number one. Secondly, and most importantly, it also boils down to public perception. So what happens is that, and as literary agents, we have to always send it out to traditional publishers, because if we send it out, so see, in the first scenario that you mentioned where they're doing it on their own, we're not required, nobody's required. So it's a DIY, but in the second scenario, we have to get traditional publishers, because if we don't, then the point is that an author can always come back and say that, this was something that we could have done at our own end, because if we had to select a package and take things forward. So while it works for some, per se for us, it doesn't. But my strongest point is that, it's all about perception. So if you're published by, good publisher, or say if you're published by a self-publisher, your friends, family, relatives will probably congratulate you, but in their mind they will think that this book would not have been good, which is why he had to self-publish it. That's the thought they'll have in their mind, for sure. And at the same time, if they have a traditional publisher, say a major publisher, they may not read the book, but in their hearts they'll be like, oh, the book would have been very good, which is why X has taken it up. So it's also about perception. And perception always drives it, and you will see invariably that with most traditional publishers, because they're investing, because they have their interests aligned in the sale of the book, the quality of the book is invariably much better. They push the book a little more in comparison to, say, self-publishers, because they've already made their profit. So they may or may not be as interested in actually selling the book, because they look at different authors at that point of time. So I would say that while it's an individual decision at the end of the day, we are still living in a democracy. But a favorable decision would always be that you go through a traditional route, so that your interests become, because it's not about one book. It's never about a book. It's always about the author. When you start writing your first book, you have a reader base of 0, because your friends and family are your authors. But when you write your first book, you will get, even if you get 500 readers, when you're doing your next book, you have a reader base of 500. The next one, you have 1,000. So your reader base keeps on increasing. So you need to build your brand rather than just the book, because the book will come and go, but the author will stay. So you have to look at your long-term.
Suhail, so I think we're running out of time, and we'll end today.
Swasti, just 1 minute.
Yeah.
Swasti?
Yes, Beena.
Swasti, can I just say one line?
Yes, sure.
I want to say about Suhail that actually, when I sold a number of copies, I was very happy, and I thanked Suhail and my publisher for that. And I was carried off when he called me personally and said, "It has nothing to do with us; it is to do with you." No one will usually say that, they want the credit to take that. But I was really touched with those words, and I felt that I have to start. He's responsible for my book and the marketing, but still he gives me the credit of the book. So that's a big, I find something very nice, high about him.
Is doing so well.
Thank you so much.
Since we are running out of time. So, and what I can conclude, like I being the only reader in this group, I can conclude that we have a plethora of fiction coming up. Indian writing is at its best. We have, we can only look forward to much more and much better fiction. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swasti. You've been a fantastic moderator. You've made the session extremely lively, and it was an honor and a pleasure to be with such learned people. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone who's seen this session would have. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Suhail. That's a great compliment.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Swasti.
Thanks, Beena. Thanks, Meena. Meena's not here today.
Thanks, Suhail, for being there.
Yeah,
thank you, Coach Krishnan, for organizing this.
Yeah, and thanks to Manoj for organizing this, and for our ALS fellow LSers. We are going on with Navrang, with Navras 2020. It started on the 1st of July, and 9 days of emotions. Today is laughter. So we look forward to seeing you on Facebook or all the sessions. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Suhail. Bye, Santani.
Bye.
So do check out Facebook, the Asian Literary Society, and the current function that we are having, which is Navras 2020, about the various emotions.